So, these boxes are all from a company called Next Level Racing. They're linked below, and they specialize in racing simulator setups for games like Dirt Rally, Automobilista, and in our case, F1 2020. I'm a huge Formula One fan. So we're gonna bring all these boxes upstairs where I think the sim is gonna stay. It's a pretty big setup. Again, it's not something that's like super expensive. I would say ballpark of around $1,000 for the full chassis and the chair and the things that you might need, like adapters for monitors and things of that sort. So there's quite a bit that goes into it, but it's honestly not as expensive as I thought. I do want to disclose though that all of these parts were sent by Next Level Racing for us to kind of build and enjoy and experiment with and get to talk about with all of you. So we're gonna bring these upstairs. They're awfully heavy, especially this big boy right here. This has the full frame as well as the seat, I believe, in it. And then we've got keyboard and mouse, kind of a stand. We have a mat for, hardwood floors. We don't have those, but we got one anyway. And then what else we have? Oh, a monitor adapter and one other box. I have no idea, but yeah, let's go ahead and take it all apart, take it all out right after this.
Activating Windows is as simple as hopping on over to SCD Key's VIP site where you can purchase an OEM Pro key for a little over $10 US. Use a secure payment method like PayPal, receive your key in a matter of seconds, and activate your OS here to remove that annoying watermark. Click the link below to get started and use my offer code GSL for a sweet discount.
Ooh, look at that, FGT. So what that means, it's actually good for Formula One. Wow, the focus is just going whack. It's good for Formula One style racing as well as a GT style racing. So you can sit kind of more reclined like you would in an F1 car, or you can sit more upright like you would in a GT car. This is the base of the chair here. You can see you've got adjustability built in, and then we've got a nice kind of stitched in logo for the company. The chair itself, this particular model, the chair is fairly thin, at least the backrest is, but we're not going for optimal comfort here. We're just going for kind of realism, and I think you get that. I don't think many people would say Formula One cars feel very comfortable to sit in. So you can see here in the installation manual, the two different types of setups that are allowed with this particular unit. So the Formula One style, you kind of sit down into it, and then the GT style is a little more natural. Now, I have to pardon the lighting. There is no studio lighting in this room, but this is where we're gonna set it up. You can see we've got the mat. There's really no reason to have the mat. I mean, seeing as though we have carpet pretty much everywhere, but it's actually a pretty nice mat. It's embroidered, so that's cool. And we have all the parts to the frame. This looks like it will take a little while, so let's set up a quick little time lapse. Now this here is the system that will be driving everything. I actually used this for quite a while with my Oculus Rift S, and since we're moving that VR headset over to the racing sim, I think that this system will be just fine for that. F1 2020 is not a super demanding game, although if you do want to bump up some in-game settings, especially when it's all going to be right in front of you, you might want a more powerful card than a GTX 1070. I can always upgrade this to a 1080, you can try an RTX 2060 or even a 2070, but I wanted to keep this to a single 8-pin, only because these custom SIM cables that I have, I only ordered
a single 8-pin EPS, or not EPS, sorry, PCIe supplemental power cable. So kind of hoping that 1070 or 1080 will be enough for F1 2020. The CPU should be perfectly fine. I think it's an i5-8400 in here. I'll double check that in software. And then the power supply is a 600 watt, plenty of breathing room for a system like this. And I really wanted a system like around this size. You know, I can toss it up in the air, it doesn't weigh too much, and it's fairly compact. There's no designated space for a gaming PC around this VR simulator setup. So we have options here. We can strap this to the back of our chair, at least until we get something like a butt kicker that will move the chair around. I don't want to have this on the back of that when it's moving, but we could put this in front of the pedals, in front of the chassis, off to the side, maybe underneath the keyboard and mouse stand. There are a lot of different places we could put this, and yeah, it's because of the size. So there you go.
All right, so we finished the chassis. It's looking pretty good, and we're gonna have to kind of tweak things based on our heights, right? So my brother's a lot taller than I am, so this will need to be adjusted according to whoever is actually using the simulator. But now we're going to install the integrated monitor stand, and this is in the same color as the chassis, so it'll all look very uniform. This is an optional add-on. I recommend you get it because you're gonna need some sort of display, a TV or a monitor to kind of navigate through the menus, even if you're gonna go for a VR setup like we are.
this lap.
So here's a brief rundown of where we set things up. This here is obviously the system. This is what drives the entire simulator. And I've got it kind of propped up at an angle so that the graphics card underneath can pull in some fresh air. It's not so choked out by sitting on carpet or this mat. And then the CPU is able to pull in air through the scythe cooler from the top relatively unhindered as well. I felt like this was probably the best place to put this and it keeps it out of the way as well. So it keeps kind of a clean aesthetic. Now, as for the display, this is a G32QC from Gigabyte. We mounted it to the integrated monitor stand. This is a nice curved panel, 32 inches, I think is the bare minimum I would be okay with in a simulator design like this. The curved aspect gives it a slightly more immersive feel, and it has a high refresh rate as well as a pretty decent resolution, like 1440p 1080p here, which is nice. The only thing I wish this monitor had, and I talked about it in the review, was an integrated AC adapter, but I was still able to kind of neatly route the cables around to, again, keep things as clean as possible. Now these pedals from Thrustmaster are amazing. They feel really nice. They're all metal, and I recommend you wear shoes. I wasn't wearing shoes, obviously, in some of the B-roll you're seeing here, but to give it a more, I don't know, a real feel. You're gonna drive with shoes more than likely, so I recommend using those. This obviously is a clutch here. The brake, you can adjust the brake. There are different ways to kind of mod the brake pedal to give it a different feeling, and then the gas pedal there on the far right. You can change the angles of the pedals themselves. You can change the angle of the entire board. All of this is very versatile, which I love. And this here is the steering wheel. Now, the Thrustmaster steering wheel we're using here is linked down below if you're interested. This is a game changer. This makes the racing feel significantly more real than it otherwise would have. You just look at this from the outside, you might think, okay, well, it's kind of a shell, but there's really no feedback for the driver sitting in the seat because we don't have the butt kicker, which is like a $3,000 option that will move the seat kind of in tandem with how you would expect the car to behave in real life if you were sitting in one. But the steering wheel actually provides so much feedback to the driver that I'm not really missing that $3,000 option. So if you get yourself a good enough steering wheel, there are significantly more expensive options than this, but I think this is a great place to start. You're not really gonna miss that feedback. You can feel when your tires up front aren't gripping properly. You can feel when the back of the car is about to whip out from behind you. All that feedback is translated through this, and it's such a great translation for especially, you know, rookie drivers like myself, just kind of playing to have fun. Wouldn't recommend this for professional driver setup, but again, it is a good place to start. So that's about it for this one. I am still insanely addicted to the sim racing. It's only been a few days and I've been playing it nonstop. I think the wife is being driven a bit crazy because I only want to do this. I don't even want to work anymore because this is such a, it's just such a unique feeling. You know, I've been playing on controllers, analog sticks my whole life, starting first with the PlayStation 1 Gran Turismo, and you know, that feedback at the time was enough for me, especially when the controllers start vibrating. You can feel when the tires are about to break loose, but that is significantly more primitive than something like this, as you might expect, and you are going to pay for it. Obviously, this is no small feat to overcome financially, but if you are able to at least try one out, I think you will understand where I'm coming from. And once you start racing with a sim like this, I imagine it's gonna be very difficult to want to go back to anything else, especially a mouse and keyboard, God forbid. At least a controller, but it could be much worse if you were using the mouse and keyboard. I don't know how people do that. Anyway, if you guys like this video, thumbs up, consider subscribing, leave a comment down below with your feedback. You can find all the parts that you've seen in this video in the video. You just wanna go? Just go ahead, just go. This is what I get for filming in the game room upstairs. Anyway, I will catch you guys in the next one where we're gonna try to integrate VR into this racing setup, which I think will be the next logical step in terms of immersion, because this is so good already. Just the steering wheel, it feels so immersive. I don't know how else to describe it, that I feel like VR will just be the icing on the cake. Problem is F1 2020, for whatever reason, still does not support VR, so we're gonna have to kind of work things out with a few third-party applications. We'll talk about that in the second video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for racing with me.